Hello, I'm Fantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about Aggregate or Gazillion Dragon, which has now become readily available to players in North America. So, I have been sick for a while, so that's why I haven't been uploading, but today I'm feeling a bit better, but I'll try not to talk too much. So, what is Aggregate? Well, he is now acquirable via Monster Exchanging for 15 Pantheons or X Godfest exclusives. I recommend you don't actually use real Godfest exclusives because those can be used in different trades. Pantheons like Sakuya, Minerva, etc. you possibly have lots and lots of copies of. So, if you do have excessive copies, you should be converting these into aggregates. And I caution you to not dip below at least 2, maybe even 3 copies of any given card, because with Pantheons, new Ordeal evolutions and or special exchanges like say Gilgamesh Kur, Leyland Pheasant, etc. requires multiple Pantheons to acquire, so you may want to try and at least keep some around. Don't go to 0, of course. And point of the matter is, getting aggregates will definitely catapult your potential, because the more you actually have, ideally you have 3 plus friend, you're able to create this full system and you can start smashing your way through content. So let's take a look at aggregate at a glance, so to speak. So in the first and second form, you start with 4 skill boosts per aggregate. So ideally, if the system, you have 16 to start. You need 27 to transform. When you do transform initially, you create a single spinner, and then you have a 5 billion damage cap for 30 turns, which is oftentimes enough to last the length of a given dungeon, which means 4 aggregates can hit for up to 60 billion damage, which is kind of ridiculous. And then they give 2 turns of haste upon their second/final transformation step. So ideally, you are able to try and get yourself into that third form as quick as possible, because once you get into that third form, you start actually smashing through stuff. So in the final form, they have 25 times effective health because of their 96% damage reduction shield. They have 2,500 times attack multiplier. They have plus 10 combos. They have 10 million auto follow attack. They have a 4-turn cooldown when fully transformed, which is why you want to have ideally a total of 3 plus friend for this system. And then this active skill gives you a full board changer of your desired elements. It gives you a 10-turn spinner that only spins for those desired elements, a 10-turn 2 times movement time buff, which again can help you bridge over in case you get delayed or you don't have the full system. The spinner plus movement time should allow you to fish out the orbs needed to at least activate your leader's skill. 410 combos of VDP and levitation. You're going to hit stupendously hard with your 3 light pings / damage sources, which is why you can hit for 15 billion damage potentially per aggregate, hence why the 60 billion per turn is definitely doable, which sounds completely outrageous. And they also have 4 enhanced heart orb or heart orb awakenings, which means a significant healing boost when considering the fact that you have 4 aggregates are providing 16 enhanced heart orb awakenings. It solves many mechanics all on its own. So what does this full system solve? Well, it gives you that potentially to have that consistent 60 billion damage per turn for 30 turns, depending on the super gravity value. You can also, just enjoy the fact that just the main attribute is 20 billion, sub attribute maybe like 1 to 2 billion. Most things don't have 20 billion plus health, so even with minimal matching, you possibly just wipe things out, because one jammer, one poison, 1 light combo equals 13 combos. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Healing is solved unless you have extremely high values of super altitude, but there are obviously like relatively easy fixes. You could use some team RCVs if you have, like, say for UN5, or you have another healing solution even stuck on the team. You have guaranteed activation with this board changer with the full system. You have 100% time extend uptime, which is huge because any time debuff is completely ignored because you're using an aggregate every single turn. The spinner also ensures that you can activate. It gets rid of other unpleasant spinners, and it just makes life so much easier. You can VDP from that spinner if necessary, and with the VDP, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit the 60 billion across all the aggregates. All the auto follow attack, all the bonus combos. You're immune to poison damage. You cannot actually kill stuff by matching mortal poison orbs. I've learned that the hard way. You don't take the damage from the mortal poison, but it doesn't trigger your leader's skill. And you technically don't need blind, jammer, or poison resist, because with blind resist, you can technically ignore it because you just look at the shapes a poison, jammer, heart, and light orb all have different shapes. You can technically eyeball it to tell the difference, and poison and jammer resist. Like, why would you need that? You kind of want those orbs anyways, so therefore the surges are not necessary either. So what should you be bringing for your aggregate team? So you only have 2 subs available, and I'm going to assume you have this full system team, and you want them to ideally have low base cooldowns in order to inherit these longer high impact weapon assists to get you transformed initially. Because remember, you take 27 to transform first, and then 6 more turns to transform into your final form. So you ideally want to bring obviously 27 skill boosts, but it's offset by 16 from aggregates prior to using weapon assists. You need a damage and attribute absorption solution. I'm going to assume that you're entering dungeons blind. Obviously, you want to cater the team specifically to the dungeon if you know the dungeon information, but assuming you're going in blind, you want to bring both the absorption solutions. You should definitely bring Bind, Awoken Bind, and Unmatchable Solution, aka a Cleric. You want 6 turns of haste or delay. Delay only can be used in some dungeons. It's definitely better to have the haste aspect, because if you can't delay floor 1, you're just going to have a bad time. And you can technically get by with only 5 turns of these effective skill boosts, and I'll explain how you can do so a little bit later on in this video. You want to bring 1 light card of as many L's as possible. Doesn't matter if it's a main or sub attribute, as long as it's a light based card with lots of L's, they can utilize the Assist Void Recovery 6 slot latent Tamadra. You want Tape Resist, because if you don't activate your leader skill, you're guaranteed to die. And then there's always the chance that the spinner you generate gets placed into the tape, and then obviously it's not a likely case, but there's always the chance that's going to happen at some point that the board does not let you activate and the spinner is inaccessible and you die. Obviously, it's a problem, but remember, you don't need too many different things, because we're already saying we can skip blind, jam, or poison, so including a tape resist is not going to be that hard, I feel. And then I personally bring at least a few time extend awakenings, because his movement time buff is 2 times, but aggregates have no base movement time. So if your other subs had no movement time, your base time is still 5 seconds, doubled is 10. 10 seconds is definitely more than enough to puzzle a given board, but if you have to play the spinner game to fish out orbs for a VDP, it's just nicer to have a bit more movement time. And remember, every second you bring is really 2 seconds acquired, so it's extra efficient when you bring a little bit of movement time. And the system technically lacks an attack or RCV buff, so depending on the dungeon you play through, it might be beneficial to bring those buffs incorporated into your other subs. Again, may not need the RCV buffing, assuming it's not a 0% RCV debuff, because the enhanced hard orbs could make you heal more than enough, assuming it's not super altitude. Attack debuff, depending on the intensity of the attack debuff, may or may not be necessary. Of course, bringing stuff to overcome it might just make your life a little bit happier. And one thing I want to mention is that all the subs you bring don't need to be light based, except for the one that actually has the L, because aggregate's leader skill only provides damage reduction. It doesn't care what color you are. Aggregate's super inclusive that way. So for cleric options, I just went through my box and typed in through the skill search Bind, and I just came up with a couple of cards that seemed quite useful. A couple of standout options possibly are Last Order, who was technically kind of farmable because just black rainbow event medals, and Kazumi, the second sub shown here. They both have 4 L's and 2 team HP awakenings, so they end up being potentially great cleric solutions to take on the Assist Void Recovery 6 slot latent. They are great options. Odin Dragon I just included because he is farmable. Drawback is his active skill is a transforming one, which is a good example of why transforming is not as ideal for your subs, because he only can provide 2 turns of haste, which means your other sub is going to have to bring 4 turns of haste, ideally, to get yourself going. So if possible, you want to bring cards that are not transforming or don't have transforming active skills. Kenobi is another cleric with a 7x6 tacked onto their active skill, and Leona is one of the original clerics that you possibly have used because she has many skill boosts. She does give you excessive healing, so it could be nice in UN5. Again, it's not super important like which specific one you bring to a certain extent, because most options, like I said, will work, assuming you can at least try and address the needs I outlined previously. For absorption options, similar logic applies, but just giving you an example of Ultraman Zero being a stellar choice because he has the movement time, he has the tape, he has 6 Ls, he has that light sub-attribute, he has a 4-turn base cooldown, so that gives you 1 turn of absorption cancellation, and then Halloween Paimon was just an inherit I threw on top of it with a 20-turn cooldown, so 24 turns to get going. Your life is going to be happy overall. So just an example of showing like what you can bring. I looked in my box and I just kind of photoshopped in the fact that Patty and New Year's Khepri existed and I don't necessarily have them. But point is, like, you can use most given cards, but like it's pretty flexible, I feel, team building for the most part. So then the last part I want to try and address is like hasting and delaying. So because you can't delay everything, haste is preferred. And 6 turns is ideal, but if you only can bring 5 turns of haste because of limited box options, what you do is you pop 1 aggregate and let that spinner he generates change into poison. And then once that's in poison, you hit the next aggregate to create a brand new spinner in hopefully a different location. The reason why you're waiting to go to poison is because the spinner goes from light, hearts, jammer, poison, back to light. So in this cycle, assuming your board is completely normal with no jammers or poisons, the last thing it's going to be is poison, which is the longest time. So that's why you're going to do an aggregate, spin it into poison, change it to a new aggregate, get a new spinner, poison, new aggregate, spinner to poison. That way your board will have 3 poison orbs, and then your last spinner, you'll fish out a jammer to start with, and then match a light combo somewhere and fish out 2 more jammers from that spinner. It's definitely going to be much more doable compared to trying fishing out poison orbs because at least initially you don't have that movement time buff. So obviously it's better to bring 6 turns of haste, but you can get away with 5 turns of haste if your box is not deep enough to support 6 turns of haste. So kind of a little trick I utilized once in a while when I didn't have necessarily the best options to get enough haste. So in conclusion, Aggregate is an incredibly strong leader. You should definitely pick up as many copies as you possibly can without gutting your monster box entirely because he will allow you to start smashing through content. Good example is my mom. She's been playing Pad for 10 plus years, at least at this point as well, actually. And I went into her, I touched her account yesterday, got her a bunch of aggregates, and she started smashing through content that she wasn't necessarily clearing before. So she's quite happy about that. And basically on her team, I just put on like Kazumi for the L, and then like I forgot what I put on her as her absorption. It wasn't super important, but like I built that generic team to counter as many different things as possible, and it works quite well. So with that being said, hopefully this video provides you with some insight as to what you can do to try and team build yourself an aggregate composition. I like the fact that he puts the dragon back in Puzzles and Dragons, so it's a pretty good time to be playing overall. So with that being said, let me know what you lovely ladies and gentlemen think about this kind of video format detailing like team building options for other like high-end teams. So I might try and do the same thing when my voice gets a bit better for other stuff. And if there are other stuff you want me to try and look into, let me know in the comment section down below. Regardless of all that, hopefully all you lovely ladies and gentlemen have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.